The moving boxes are too heavy for one person. You know this. Your arms know this. And still, when your neighbor sticks his head out the door and says, "Hey, you want a hand with that?" you hear yourself say, "No, I've got it," before you've even finished thinking about whether you do. You don't got it. You're going to be sore for 3 days. But something in you decided, faster than thought, that carrying the couch alone was the safer option. That's the whole pattern, right there in one doorway. This isn't a video about being strong. It's about a specific kind of tired. The tired that comes from being the only person on call for your own life at all times, even when help is standing 3 feet away with its hand out. If you're the friend everyone calls when they're falling apart, but you've never once called anyone back, this is for you. If you'd rather redo a project at 2 a.m. than ask a coworker to check it, this is for you. If the words, "I need help with this," feel more embarrassing to say out loud than almost anything else you could confess, this is for you. Let's start with what it actually looks like, not what it feels like. Feelings come later, behavior first. You're sick. Really sick. The kind where you should probably have someone bring you soup. You don't text anyone. You order the soup yourself from an app, and you tip well because at least that transaction has a clean ending. Nobody has to worry about you. Nobody has to know. You're overwhelmed at work, 3 deadlines stacked on top of each other, and a coworker who's clearly less busy asks if you want them to take one off your plate. You say you're good, you are not good. You will finish all 3 at midnight and tell your manager it went fine. You're short on money 1 month. Not desperate, just short. A friend would lend it to you in a second. No questions, and you know that. You don't ask. You sell something instead. You'd rather lose an object that meant something to you than have a conversation that makes you feel like a burden. None of this looks like a crisis from the outside. That's exactly the problem. It looks like competence. It looks like someone who has their life together. And that's the costume hyper-independence wears best. It disguises itself as strength so well that even you get fooled by it. Here's the part people usually get wrong about this. They think hyper-independence means you don't need people. That's not it. You need people. You need them the same amount as everyone else does. What's different is what happens in your body the moment that need becomes visible to someone else. For a lot of people who grew up needing to manage things on their own, an unpredictable parent, a household where asking for something got you a sigh instead of an answer, a period where you learned that depending on someone was the fastest way to be disappointed. The lesson wasn't, people can't help. The lesson was, needing something out loud is dangerous. Not physically dangerous, just costly. Costly in a currency you learn to avoid spending, exposure. Because here's what asking for help actually requires, underneath the practical part. It requires saying out loud to another person, "I can't do this alone." And for someone wired this way, that sentence doesn't land as information, it lands as a confession. Like you just handed someone evidence they could use against you later, so you don't ask. And the relief is immediate. You skip the whole risky moment. No one gets to see you need something. No one gets to say no or hesitate or help you in a way that feels like pity instead of partnership. You stay in control of the one thing you can actually control, which is whether anyone finds out you're struggling. That relief is real. That's the part people miss when they call this a flaw. It's not a flaw, it's a strategy. It worked. At some point, doing everything yourself was the smartest, safest move available to you. The problem isn't that the strategy was wrong back then. The problem is that it never got the memo that the situation changed. Watch how this shows up in a relationship, because this is where it gets expensive. Someone who loves you asks how you're doing, and they mean it. And you say, "I'm fine," in a tone that's just a half second too fast, too smooth, too rehearsed, and somewhere in their chest, they register that the door just quietly closed. They don't always know why. They just know they asked a real question and got a practiced answer. This happens again and again. Eventually they stop asking with the same hope, not because they stopped caring, because they learned, the same way you once learned, that offering doesn't get them anywhere, so they back off. And you feel that distance and think, "See, I knew I couldn't count on people," which is the cruelest trick this pattern plays. It creates the exact isolation it was trying to protect you from, and then uses that isolation as proof that isolation was the right call all along, That's the loop. Not a straight line, a loop. Trigger, self-reliance, relief, distance, confirmation, repeat. There's a specific moment inside this loop worth slowing down on, because it's the one nobody talks about. It's not the moment you decide to handle something alone. It's the half second right before that, when someone genuinely offers, and you feel something tighten in your chest that isn't gratitude. It's closer to alarm, your jaw sets. Your answer is already forming before their sentence is finished. That tightening is the tell. That's not you evaluating whether you need the help. That's an old alarm going off, one installed a long time ago, warning you that needing something out loud is about to cost you. And here's the part that will sound backwards until you sit with it. The independence isn't the goal. Control is the goal. Independence is just the shape control takes when the thing you're controlling is how exposed you get to be. You can see this in smaller moments too. The way you'll give advice for hours to a friend going through something hard, generous with your time, sharp with your insight, and then go home and sit with your own version of the exact same problem in complete silence. Not because you don't deserve the same care you hand out so easily, because giving care keeps you in the position of the strong one, and receiving it puts you somewhere you haven't practiced being in a long time, the one who needs something. There's a myth worth correcting directly, because it's the one keeping this pattern comfortable. The myth is that needing help is weakness, and handling everything alone is maturity. It's the opposite more often than not. A person who can say, "I'm struggling with this," out loud, to another human being, and let them see it, that takes more nerve than doing it alone ever did. Doing it alone is the easier move. It just doesn't feel that way, because the fear got there first, and convinced you it was the harder, braver option. Independence isn't the problem here. Nobody's saying you should need people for everything, or that self-sufficiency is a red flag. The problem is when independence stops being a choice, and becomes the only setting the switch has. When you're not choosing to handle it alone, because it makes sense this time, you're handling it alone because the other option, asking, was never actually on the table in your mind. That's not independence anymore. That's a reflex wearing independence's clothes. Think about what this quietly costs, over years, not days. It costs you rest, because the person who can't ask for help also can't stop being the one who handles things. And there's no such thing as rest for someone who's always on call. It costs you closeness, in the specific way we already walked through. People slowly learning not to offer, because offering never lands anywhere. And it costs you something less obvious. The chance to actually be known. Because being known requires being seen at your least impressive moment, not just your most capable one. If nobody ever sees you need something, nobody ever really gets the full picture of who you are. They get the highlight reel. And a highlight reel, no matter how good it looks, is a lonely thing to live inside of. There's also a strange kind of grief hiding underneath this, one that rarely gets named. It's the grief of doing something hard, and having nobody know how hard it was. You finish the impossible week, alone, and there's no one to turn to and say, "That was a lot," because no one knew it was happening in real time. You absorbed it so completely that there was nothing left for anyone else to witness. You didn't just carry the weight. You carried the fact that you carried it too, in silence, so that even the story of your own effort never gets told to anyone but you. Notice too how this pattern reroutes the way you handle your own needs versus everyone else's. You'll notice a friend seems off before they've said a single word about it. You'll text them first. You'll show up with food they didn't ask for. Somehow the radar for other people's struggle is finely tuned, almost instant, and yet the same radar, pointed inward, goes completely dark. Not because you don't notice your own exhaustion, because noticing it and acting on it are two different systems, and only one of them was ever allowed to run freely. The one that says go help them got rewarded early and often. The one that says ask them for help got quietly shut down, somewhere back when it first tried to speak, and nothing good came of it. There's a version of this that shows up as over-preparation too. You'll research a problem for an hour before you'll ask one person a 5-minute question. You'll watch 3 tutorials before you'll message a friend who already knows the answer. It looks like diligence, sometimes it is, but sometimes it's the same avoidance, wearing a productivity costume. Because a tutorial can't disappoint you, and a person can. A search engine has no opinion of you. A friend potentially does. So you'll spend 3 hours doing it the hard way, rather than 3 minutes doing it the exposed way, and call the 3 hours just being thorough. Even apologizing gets caught in this. You'll say sorry for needing something before anyone's had the chance to be annoyed. Sorry, I know this is a lot to ask. Attached to a request so small it barely counts as a request at all. The apology isn't really about the favor. It's a kind of insurance, paid in advance, in case needing something turns out to be as costly as you've always quietly expected it to be. If any of this is landing, here's the smaller, more honest place to start. Not a full overhaul, not a personality change, nothing that dramatic. Just this: the next time you feel that tightening in your chest, the half-second alarm before someone's offer, don't act on it immediately. Just notice it. Let it be information instead of an instruction. You don't have to accept the help. You just have to let the moment last 1 second longer than it wants to. Long enough to ask yourself honestly, am I saying no because I don't need this? Or because saying yes would mean someone gets to see me needing something? That question alone, asked often enough, starts to loosen something. Not overnight, but it's the difference between a reflex and a choice. A reflex happens to you, a choice belongs to you. And maybe the next time the boxes are too heavy, and someone sticks their head out the door and offers a hand, you let the sentence finish before your answer starts. You let there be a small, awkward pause where you actually consider it. And maybe you still say no, that's fine. But if you say yes, even once, even for something small, even just the couch, you'll notice something. The world doesn't end. Nobody uses it against you. They just pick up the other end, and for a few minutes the weight is smaller because it's shared, and nothing bad happens at all. This video is meant for reflection, not as a substitute for professional support. If this pattern is connected to something heavier, a therapist or counselor can help you work through it in a way a video never fully can. The couch was never really about the couch. It was about whether you could let someone see you carrying something. And that's a door. It opens from your side.